when it does end up ending, that's where the value came from too. Really getting clear on my part and trying to learn about how to not have judgment. Try to understand.
Judgment towards yourself.
Well, towards myself, towards my husband. I went through an amazing program. It was probably the most powerful program I've ever been through, which was called the Hoffman Quadrinity Process, which is out in California.
Oh, I've heard of that.
It's an
I know people
process.
have gone to that, yeah.
I was in it 10 years ago. My daughter's been through it. And it's really about patterns that you've learned growing up, 300 negative love patterns, they call them.
Oh, 300.
And everybody has them, and everybody's learned them. They're intergenerational things that serve us at one time in our life and then later don't. And you recognize a lot of what you do is just a subconscious reaction. Right. And then they give you lots of tools for working through that.
Yes.
And at the same time, I ended up, there's so many synchronicity stories, but I ended up going to a year-long Course in Miracles, which was a program that, it's a channeled book.
Yes.
That two therapists actually wrote out of New York, and it's a year-long process. But they talk about all the different emotions and everything being either love or fear, really, going down to it, and fear being an illusion. So over time, I'd looked at this one thing where you have these 300 patterns and how do you work with that? Or you could look at it in a really broad sense and look at, are you coming from a place of love or fear? And actually, eventually, I did a lot with meditation and ended up working and following a Buddhist path. And there's 48,000 negative emotions. So you can look at these things from any point of view.
It gets very complex, right?
And yet simple.
And very simple.
And yet it's very simple. So I went on this whole inner journey, and I was so excited about what I was learning and how it changed my life. I mean, I found the work I loved. After the relationship ended, I did this personal growth work. So I look at it as I have a personal growth lifestyle. Yes. And ended up...
Oh, I like that. Personal growth lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have it on my web for a while. I was going to trademark it, personal growth as a lifestyle.
Yeah, I love that.
And I'm not sure I would have recognized the value of it until I'd already experienced some of it.
Well, you can't.
No, but now it became a way of life.
Right.
So
meaning the search doesn't really end. The learning about the self never ends.
No, because you find new things out about yourself, and you're letting those other things go, whether it's through forgiveness or learning how to not judge yourself and others. I mean, there's all those things where you realize over time that you're not even physically the person that you were.
Well, of course. Because often I'll hear from people, well, I've already done therapy, or I've worked on myself, and why isn't it over? And it's like, well, it'll be over when you're dead, but if you're alive, you're going to be working on yourself. Stuff's going to be coming. I mean, you'll have the opportunity to work on your stuff, because stuff will be constantly rising to the surface that aligns with where you are in your life.
And I really believe that's what this whole journey is about.
Yes. Yeah.
The coaching process itself is really about eliciting from the other person who they are and what's right for them. That doesn't mean I tell you.
Right.
That would be ridiculous, because you're your own.
Because you don't know. Right.
You're your own unique person, and you have your own unique experiences, and you're going to have your own unique answers. But what I can do is help create a safe space for exploring that.
Right.
And I can bring different strategies based on what I've gone through as opportunities to look at things from a different place.
Right. And tools, really offering some tools.
And it's like that thing where if you had a statue, these are all pretty uniform. Well, that one's pretty different. If you were sitting from your point of view, you could say things about it that I wouldn't be able to.
If we were both looking at this, we're looking at it from, I'm seeing the tail, you're seeing the wing.
Yeah.
But it's still all the same thing.
I didn't even know it was a bird till you picked it up.
Didn't know it was a bird.
All I saw was a little thing sticking out.
Right.
I love your kitchen. Look, there's so much. So that was a perfect example where sometimes you need another view.
Right.
And
the coach provides that.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's one of the things I'm really strong at, just that whole looking at what else are possibilities.
Well, also because you come from a science background, and when you have a science background, you're looking at all possibilities.
Yeah.
Anything is possible.
And without judgment.
There's no judgment.
Really important.
100%.
Really. I have coaches. Once I was coached, I always want coaches.
Yeah.
Because friends are friends, which is great. Family is family, which is great.
You don't want to use them in that way. The coach is a particular relationship. Let's fast forward to this really big transition that has kind of birthed your book that's coming up. I'm going to show it, Surprise Me, by Susan Osborne, The Gift of Uninvited Change. So let's talk about a little bit that uninvited change, because that cataclysmic.
That pretty much was the ultimate test for me. I had been remarried. I had this wonderful man, and we'd been together about 3 years. We delayed our honeymoon, and we spent a month in Asia. It was wonderful. I'd never been there. And we came back Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, and then a week later, it was actually 3 minutes into our anniversary, he was pronounced dead. Yeah, it was a shock. It was unexpected. And it put everything to the test that I'd been working on all this time.
Right.
And I have to tell you, the first thing that was so amazing about it, so I'm in the hospital, I couldn't save him, his body's there, and I just wanted to touch him and talk to him, and all these things were coming out, and somewhere out of me, it came, I'm so grateful for our time together. Oh my gosh, even I stopped. Where did that come from? Where the heck did that come from? Later, when I was thinking about it, much later, I realized it was the way I'd already changed how I lived. Every day I lived with gratitude. Every day I told him I loved him. He said, you don't have to tell me every day. And I said, I don't do it for you, I do it for me. And I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did. And that set the tone for that next week, which was just completely overwhelming. You know, it just, but because of all the work I had been doing, I'd been meditating, I was so aware of every little thing going
consciously.
On. Very conscious. Made very conscious choices about what I did and how I responded. Because, you know, when you have uninvited change, you can react, which is the unconscious way.
That's the standard way.
Which is, that's just because we haven't trained ourselves to do it any other way. So I really had been training myself to do it.
But you didn't even know that until this test came.
Well,
front and center.
Yeah. In fact, it did come front and center, and all kinds of challenges with that, of course. But they were different challenges than they would have been if I hadn't already been through those other changes. So I'd already been kind of looking at what I'd been changing, and ultimately, there were so many gifts. I call this a surprise with a Z because they're not what you expect.
They're not what you expect.
And what my experience was with death itself, because I'd never been with anyone when they died, was this whole other experience of knowing now, in my own way of knowing, it's just a body. I mean, you hear that, but I could feel it energetically, and it was such a powerful experience, and that changed, it threw me off, you know, how do I live in this world knowing it is just a body, and there is this energy, and I feel it, and I know it.
I mean, that's...
And you can't, I don't expect other people to
unless they've
understand that.
Right, but it changes you forever.
But it changed me. One of the things I knew about myself, and everything I'd gone through, is that it was really important for me to keep a growing edge. What I call a growing edge.
Oh, talk to me about that, a growing edge.
Well, when I'm coaching, or when I had gone into this lifestyle of personal growth, every year I was looking at how do I want to grow, and not just in work. I mean, there's 8 areas I was looking at: my intellect, my emotional self. You know, we're not educated very well on emotional intelligence in this country, and that was a huge part of my personal growth shift. The growing edge, though, was knowing I was bringing new things in. And I'd gotten an email a week or 2 after he passed away, and it was about coaching millions. And I'm like, you know what? Everything I've learned, maybe the only reason I'm here is to help others and coach many, many.
Yes.
I'd always said that to him. I meant to do more with it.
Yes.
And so I'd gotten on this telesummit, which was a 40-hour, 2-week thing, and it was all going to be recorded. I knew I wasn't up for it at the time. You know, I listened to maybe 2 sessions. And,
not going to happen.
And I actually got connected with a coaching group and ended up putting in a 3-page paper to part of a compendium that we put together.